Are you a solo camping trip enthusiast? This story will make you second-guess your next solo camping trip. This is the tale of Jacob Gray, a young cyclist who vanished without a trace in the vast wilderness of Olympic National Park. It all started in April 2017, when Jacob set off on a solo bike adventure. He was riding a trusty Specialized hard rock, a little on the small side but full of sentimental value. Following him was a bright red and yellow child trailer, carrying his camping gear, a beacon in the dense foliage. He was last seen cycling down Seoul Duk Hot Springs Road. But later that afternoon, his trailer was spotted abandoned by the roadside, a stark contrast to the surrounding greenery. Jacob? Nowhere to be seen. Park rangers found his gear, but something sent shivers down their spines, a bow and arrows. Not just lying around, but some embedded in the very trailer Jacob had been hauling. It painted a chilling picture. Had he been attacked? Days turned into weeks, search parties combed the area with sniffer dogs, volunteers tracked his movements. They discovered Jacob had swapped hiking boots for running shoes, then found evidence of a fall by a river, but no sign of drowning. The deeper they searched, the more bizarre things became. The official search was downgraded, deemed limited continuous. But Jacob's family refused to give up. They organized countless searches, plastered flyers everywhere, desperately clinging to hope. Finally, in July 2017, a glimmer, a pair of his shorts were recovered along the riverbank. A cruel tease of hope. Then, over a year later, biologists stumbled upon a horrifying discovery. High on a mountain ridge, far from where his bike was found, lay Jacob's skeletal remains. His belongings, wallet, everything. The official story? Hypothermia. They pointed to the food and warm clothes found near him. But here's the problem. This doesn't explain the arrows. Or the fact that Jacob's remains were just bones. Any potential wounds would be impossible to identify. Lost people instinctively head downhill, not climb mountains. Unless, they were running from something. And there's another unsettling detail, the Bible found with him. Why would he choose that over something more practical? Was it for comfort? Or maybe, a shield against an unseen predator? Some say he took his own life, the Bible a last attempt at redemption. But that doesn't explain the survival gear. Others suggest a twisted game of survivalism, the arrows meant for practice. But then why were arrows fired at him? And why didn't he fight back? The mystery deepens. Was there a dark figure lurking in the woods? A hunter with a taste for the macabre? Did Jacob succumb to the elements, or did something far more sinister happen on that mountainside? We may never know the full truth, but one thing's for sure, Jacob Gray's story is a chilling reminder of the secrets that can be swallowed whole by the vast wilderness. So, next time you venture into the wild, remember, sometimes, getting lost isn't the worst thing that can happen. There might be something far more terrifying waiting to be found. This happened back in college, when I flew across the country for a massive family reunion at my aunt and uncle's farmhouse. Now, reunions are usually all fun and games, catching up with relatives you haven't seen in ages. But this one had a dark cloud hanging over it, my Uncle John. See, Uncle John was the black sheep of the family. A wild card who bounced in and out of jail, leaving a trail of bad blood behind him. He hadn't been seen in years, and wasn't exactly a topic of conversation. So, imagine the collective gasp when news broke that he might be lurking around the property. We were all playing a giant game of hide-and-seek, childhood nostalgia masking the underlying creep factor. Being the eldest cousin, I decided to explore the barn. Now, barns are inherently creepy, dusty, shadowed, full of forgotten objects. But nothing prepared me for the chills that awaited me in the loft. Climbing the sturdy ladder, I noticed a pile of cigarette butts by the base. Strange, considering my aunt and uncle couldn't climb a ladder anymore, let alone smoke. My uncle had lung issues. Pushing that thought aside, I reached the loft, an unsettling mix of clutter and trash. It was then I heard it, a faint sound of breathing. Anxiety gnawed at me, but I brushed it off. Suddenly, a figure materialized from the shadows, staring back at me with eyes I vaguely recognized. Before I could scream, the figure lunged, knocking me over in a scramble to escape. Heart pounding, I stumbled down the ladder, a terrifying truth dawning on me: that wasn't some random homeless guy, it was Uncle John. Time seemed to warp as I raced back to my aunt and uncle. Their faces drained of color as I stammered out the story. Uncle John, the man they ostracized, the ghost from their past, was hiding in plain sight. Panic spread like wildfire through the reunion. The police arrived, and after a tense hour-long search, Uncle John was found walking down a deserted road. He bolted at the sight of the officer, looking desperate, dangerous. They apprehended him, finding a kitchen knife from my aunt and uncle's house in his pocket. The picture became terrifyingly clear. He wasn't just hiding, he'd been inside the house, stealing a weapon. His intentions were anyone's guess, but the glint in his eyes spoke volumes. This story might not have jump scares or monsters, but the chills come from a different darkness, the chilling reality of fractured family bonds and the potential for hidden evil to lurk in the most familiar places. This happened way back when I was a teenager, hanging out with a close-knit group of friends. We were the adventurous kind, always up for games that turned into late-night escapades. One night, the idea of flashlight tag in the local cemetery came up. Now, I wasn't exactly thrilled. Cemeteries at night? No thanks. But peer pressure is a powerful thing, so I gulped down my fear and agreed. We decided to meet at Oliver's house, which was conveniently located right next to the cemetery. The plan was to head in before it got too dark, find a good hiding spot, and call it a night before things got spooky. Except, things got spooky fast. We ventured into the vast cemetery, the shadows growing longer with each passing minute. The initial anxiety I felt during the day morphed into full-blown terror as darkness descended. We played one quick round, hoping to get it over with, but then came the real scare. We were regrouping after the first round when Henry, our self-proclaimed seeker, found someone. Relief washed over me, the game was on, and I could finally get this over with. But as I started inching closer to the meeting spot, another figure emerged from the darkness. This wasn't one of my friends. A hunched figure cloaked in black, his face obscured by a hood. He turned towards me, a putrid smell assaulting my senses. Panic seized me. I fumbled with my flashlight, the beam landing on the figure's face. "Would you be a good boy and help me?" he rasped. My voice vanished. All I could do was stare, frozen in terror. Before I could react, the figure let out a blood-curdling scream, a sound that sent shivers down my spine and jolted the others into action. Flashlights flickered on, illuminating a scene of pure chaos. We sprinted towards the exit, the horrifying figure hot on my heels, his screams echoing through the night. We didn't stop running until we reached Oliver's house, a good distance away from the cemetery. Looking back, the details are blurry. The shock was overwhelming. We never spoke much about it, the memory too terrifying to revisit. But as an adult, I'm left wondering, was it a prank gone wrong, a harmless attempt to scare some teenagers? Or was it something far more sinister? A desperate plea for help from a lost soul trapped in the shadows? The truth remains buried in the darkness of that cemetery, a chilling reminder that sometimes, the things that go bump in the night might not be monsters, but mysteries that leave you forever haunted. This happened back in high school, when I was a scrawny sophomore basketball player stuck with a late practice. Our practice schedule was a chaotic mess, thanks to sharing the gym with other sports. This particular night, I ended up finishing practice at 8:45, with my parents planning to pick me up an hour later. Perfect timing, right? Wrong. Turns out, I'd used up all my phone data during practice. No texting, no calling. Great. The school Wi-Fi password had also been changed recently, leaving me totally disconnected. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, so I decided to walk to the nearby Burger King. It was a short walk, and hey, a greasy burger sounded better than waiting in a dark school. The restaurant was practically deserted when I entered. I ordered a cheap bite and settled into a booth, finally managing to connect to the Wi-Fi. A text to my mom, alerting her to my new location, sent. Now, the waiting game. As I scrolled through my phone, a figure in the corner booth caught my eye. A man, shrouded in a hooded sweatshirt and sunglasses, leaning forward like a kid asleep in class. A little sketchy, but nothing major. Minutes ticked by. He remained motionless, and I started playing games to distract myself. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I glanced over, expecting him to have left. Nope. He was still there, but now standing up. He was tall and skinny, the sunglasses hiding his expression. A shiver ran down my spine as he walked straight towards me. He didn't head for the exit, he sat down, right across from me. Panic clawed at my throat. He was silent, his stringy hair framing his shadowed face. I mumbled a greeting, met with chilling silence. This was beyond weird. After a minute of tense silence, I mumbled goodbye, wanting nothing more than to get out of there. I practically bolted towards the exit, but a glance back confirmed my worst fear. He was following. My heart hammered in my chest as I walked towards the school, hoping for some sign of life. Nothing. Empty parking lot, locked doors. The only company? My stalker, maintaining a steady 50-foot distance. Fear propelled me around the school, past classrooms and fields, the darkness amplifying every creak and groan. And still, he followed. Finally, just when I thought all hope was lost, I saw a beacon, my mom's car pulling into the Burger King parking lot. Relief flooded my veins. I sprinted across the road, practically leaping into the car. Go. Go. I shouted, explaining the situation as we peeled out. The man stood in the Burger King parking lot, a solitary figure in the distance, watching us disappear. We never saw him again. This experience left me shaken. Who was he? What did he want? One thing's for sure, it was a night I'll never forget. Alright everyone, gather round for a chilling tale from the backwoods, a story of getting lost and encountering something far more unsettling than a hungry bear. This happened when I was just a kid, a bored 10-year-old stuck at a family gathering at my uncle's place. Uncle's house was a sprawling mansion out in the middle of nowhere. Perfect for family reunions, but torture for a kid with no one to play with. So, naturally, I wandered off, drawn by the allure of the woods bordering his massive property. The woods started off innocent enough, a classic trail, dense foliage on either side. But the deeper I ventured, the more neglected the path became. Tall grass choked the trail, and forks in the path presented tempting choices. Curiosity trumped caution, and I kept exploring, the thrill of the unknown outweighing any potential dangers. That was until the panic set in. Minutes turned into what felt like hours, and the playful exploration morphed into a desperate scramble to find my way back. No smartphone for this kid, I was on my own. Then came the sound, a rustle in the undergrowth. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs. A bear? A mountain lion? Every creak, every snap of a twig sent shivers down my spine. I quickened my pace, glancing back every few seconds, hoping to catch a glimpse of the source of the noise. The first glimpse chilled me to the bone. A tall, gaunt figure emerged from the trees, his head bowed, face obscured. Terror surged through me. Who was this man lurking in the woods? I sprinted, legs burning, lungs screaming, but the figure kept pace, maintaining a haunting distance behind me. At a bend in the trail, I took a desperate gamble. I darted off the path, plunging into the thick undergrowth. Thorns ripped at my clothes, leaving scratches that stung like fire, but I didn't care. I burrowed deep into the bushes, holding my breath, praying I wouldn't be found. The sound of footsteps reached me, faint at first, then growing louder. He was off the trail, searching. Fear constricted my throat, every instinct screaming for me to stay hidden. Then, blessed silence. The footsteps faded, retreating into the woods. Relief washed over me, weak and shaky, but relief nonetheless. After what felt like an eternity, I emerged from my hiding spot. The man was gone. Taking a deep breath, I retraced my steps, walking for what felt like miles in the opposite direction of where he'd gone. And then, like a beacon of hope, I saw it, the familiar outline of my uncle's house. I ran for it, collapsing into the safety of his porch the moment I reached it. An hour later, reunited with my frantic parents, I spilled the story. My uncle, a man who knew his land like the back of his hand, went out searching. He returned empty-handed, confirming that there shouldn't have been anyone else back there. The vastness of his property only amplified the creepiness. That day in the woods was a turning point for me. It wasn't just the fear of being lost. It was the unnerving encounter with the unseen figure, a chilling reminder that the woods hold secrets best left undisturbed. And from that day forward, I never ventured into those woods alone again. Craving for more chills? Click on the video on your screen where I am telling horror stories to make you sleep for continuous 1 hour.